Hi everyone. This is a game between Anatoly Karpov and Viktor Korchnoi in their 1981 World Chess Championship match. Game started with c4, e6, knight c3, d5, d4, and the game transposed to the Queen's Gambit declined. Bishop e7 to stop white from playing bishop g5 temporarily. Korchnoi played knight f3, knight f6, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, castle, rook c1, and d takes c4. So black traded one of its center pawns to wing pawn to open up the d file and also later be able to play knight d5. To exchange the dark squared bishops and the knights. Because keep in mind that black wants to trade pieces because it has less space. If black can exchange pieces, then it will free up some space for its other pieces to move around. Korchnoi played e3, Karpov played c5. Bishop takes c4, c takes d4, e takes d4. Now white has an Isolani or an isolated d-pawn. An Isolani has plus and minuses. When you have an Isolani, you will have outposts for your pieces on e5 and c5 squares. But one of the bad things about an Isolani is it's a target for your opponent. So Karpov played knight c6, castle, and this is a very nice move, knight h5. Forcing the dark squared bishops to get traded. When you have less space, trade pieces. When you have more space, then do not trade. Bishop takes e7. Knight takes e7. Bishop b3. d5. Bishop b3 is not white's best move. d5 is white's best move. And after d5, e takes d5. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5, knight f4, bishop b3, queen takes d1, rook c takes d1, and if white plays rook f takes d1, then it's a blunder. Now you have a fork, knight e2, checking the king and attacking the rook on c1. So white is forced to take with the rook on c. And it's equal according to Anatoly Karpov's book, My Best Games. Okay, so in the actual game, Korchnoi, instead of playing d5, Korchnoi played bishop b3. And remember guys, when you have an isolated pawn, you want to figure out, okay, if you're not gonna have like a strong attack against your opponent, then you have to figure out how to trade it. And d5 I think is positionally, that's one of the best things that you can do when as white here in this position. So bishop b3, knight f6. Okay, this is very good. I learned from reading the book Play Winning Chess, authored by Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan, that when your opponent has an isolated pawn, make sure that you control the square in front of it and stop it from advancing. So here, after black played knight f6, it's controlling the d5 square. So knight e5, bishop d7, queen e2, rook c8, controlling the open file, and knight e4. So Korchnoi played knight fe4, and Karpov has an improvement, rook fe1, to prevent black from playing bishop c6, because now white has an excellent combination. Knight takes f7, rook takes f7, queen takes e6. It's winning for white. For example, knight e to d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and if, for example, black plays bishop takes d5, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, bishop takes e6, rook takes d8, check, king h7, and bishop takes e6. So here, what if Black plays knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. Then bishop takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Rook takes e8. Bishop takes e6. Rook takes d8 check. King h7 and white is up a rook. Okay. And after bishop takes d5, why not just play rook c7 for black? So white has this fantastic move, just move the bishop back. And after king h8, getting out of the pin, black can play d5, rook c to e7, threatening to take the queen, d takes e6, an excellent sacrifice. Rook takes e6, bishop takes e6, threatening to take the rook on f7. And okay, let's say rook c7, then white has this excellent move. C takes b7, rook takes b7, rook c8. That's an X-ray, and white has a winning advantage. Okay, so in the game, Korchnoi played knight e4. Then Karpov took. Queen takes e4, bishop c6. So black is giving up the light squared bishop to dominate this important d5 square. Not that one. d5 square. Remember, guys, you want to ensure that you control the square in front of the isolated pawn. So after bishop c6, knight takes c6, rook takes e6, rook c3. White is inviting black to take the rook on c3, because after rook takes c3, which is a mistake, then now white doesn't have an isolated pawn anymore. So rook c3, Karpov played queen d6, g3, creating a luft for white, rook d8, rook d1, defending the d pawn, rook b6, and this is a very nice move because now black has threat to play rook b4, and you don't see a lot of games, at least me, I don't see a lot of games where you have the chance to attack the isolated d pawn with the flank attack. But that's one of Karpov's ideas. Queen e1, getting out of the pin, queen d7, rook c to d3, and now rook d6. Now that's what you do on isolated pawn. First, you need to control the square in front of it, then you gang up on it. You keep on pressuring it. So rook d6, queen e4, knight c6. Oh, sorry. Queen c6 is what Karpov played. Queen f4, knight d5, threatening to take the queen. Queen d2, queen b6, bishop takes d5, and rook takes d5 now. Now you only have minor pieces, and from what I studied before, this is a book about isolated pawns. Usually when you have isolated pawns, you want to keep the major pieces, aka the rooks and the queen, and you want to trade the minor pieces. But usually if you don't have but that's a general rule. But now if you're the one, like for example here, you're white and you're playing with an isolated pawn, you want to trade those rooks, the queens, the major pieces. Okay, I mean that's what I read the book. I forgot the name of the book, but it's an excellent book about isolated pawns. So rook b3, threatening to take the queen, queen c6, queen c3, queen d7. I guess now black is threatening to play e5, f4 to prevent black from playing e5. But now the problem is after white played f4, it's exposed. You can't expose your king, and like what my brother, international master coach Joel Banawa says, that every pawn move creates a weakness. So now with this f4 pawn, it created a weakness on f2 and e3. So after f4, b6, rook b4, b5, intending to harass black's rook with a5 and gaining more space. White played a4, b takes a4, queen a3, trying to get the pawn back. a5, rook takes a4, queen b5, rook d2. Since white's king is already open, black decided to open another file, and that's what you're supposed to do when your opponent's king is exposed. Try to open things up so you can get like checks and attack. e5, f takes e5, rook takes e5, because the rook is pinned. Queen a1, preventing black from playing rook e1 check, followed by queen f1 checkmate. Queen e8, now threatening to go rook e1 check. That's a fork. And if, like for example, white plays rook d1, then you have this nice move rook e2 with the idea of queen e3 or queen e4. Okay, so after queen e8, d takes c5, rook takes d2, and white's pawn in d5 is hanging. And aside from that, now black has threats like queen c6 to checkmate, threatening to checkmate white's king. Rook takes a5, queen c6, then rook a8 check, king h7, queen b1 check, g6, queen f1, queen c5 check, king h1. So after here in this position, after white played queen f1, he wanted black to play queen takes a8, so now white has this perpetual check, king h8, and this is his only hope to be able to save the game. Okay, so after queen c5 check, king h1, queen d5 check, and now not only that the black queen is defending the f7 pawn, but also black is threatening to play rook d1, pinning the white queen. So after here, Korchnoi resigned, and we'll see now. So what do we learn from this one? An isolated pawn has good things and bad things about it. When you have an Isolani or the isolated d pawn, you will have outposts for your pieces, like in this game, e5 and c5 squares to use. A bad thing about an Isolani is it becomes a target for your opponent. The second one is when your opponent has an isolated pawn, make sure that you control the square in front of it to stop it from advancing. The last one is when you have an isolated pawn, then look for opportunities to trade them. Do not forget to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment on what you think about the show, share it to your friends, and you can review this at lichess.org in the link below. Thank you for watching. Please come again for the next show.